Firstly, let's talk to the Deputy Mayor, Deputy Lord Mayor of Sydney, Zann Maxwell. Walk up Oxford Street in Paddington, pretty busy street, lots of shops, and then behind it, tight housing, except for a very long section behind a sandstone wall that is the Victoria Barracks. When it was built, Sydney didn't have a housing crisis. It does now. Could residential development of part of Victoria Street Barracks be part of the solution? Zann Maxwell, Deputy Mayor of the City of Sydney, joins us. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. You peek through the gates into Victoria Barracks. It looks lovely. I'd like to live there.
That's right. It's a gorgeous site. The buildings are stunning. It's a very important heritage site. It's on the State Heritage Register, the Commonwealth Heritage List, and it's locally heritage listed too. But only about 30 to 50% of it is heritage listed. And what I've been talking about is the National Defence Strategy did recommend an audit of Australian Defence Force land holdings. They're the biggest landholder in the country. So that audit included Victoria Barracks, and they were tasked, the reviewers, tasked with assessing whether Defence's high-density urban property holdings in particular align with the military's current contemporary strategic requirements. And if they weren't, they could be subject to divestment, which would allow the Defence Force to reinvest the money into its more contemporary requirements.
Well, can I just say on that, as an outsider who hasn't studied the military, of course they don't need to be there, surely.
Well, to be honest, I'm not an expert in this either, and I don't know. I don't want to preempt what's in the audit, but what my motion at council last night did was say that if this audit had been released on the timeline that it was expected to be, so the minister received it in December, but they pushed out its release until next year. But if it had been released on the expected timeline, the City of Sydney wouldn't have had a policy for what it thought the site should be used for. So what my motion did was ask the city to develop a set of guiding principles so that when this audit is released and Victoria Barracks is recommended for divestment, that the city would have a policy. And I don't want to also preempt what goes into that policy. That will be subject for further discussion.
Yes, very carefully said. Understand.
That's right. But I did want to encourage the city staff, but then also the people of Sydney to get engaged, get interested, and start thinking about what they think could serve the public benefit if such an extraordinary site like this came up for divestment.
Yeah. Well, I think when you think what could serve the public benefit, when you think about areas only be a kilometre and a half from the city in a housing crisis, it's got beautiful lawns, so there would be, some public space there potentially, but getting more people in there sounds like a pretty good idea.
Well, exactly. I mean, Sydney is in the grip of a housing crisis. We all know that. It's all we can talk about, and it's what we should be talking about. I think it will be very important to protect the heritage aspects of this site and the green space, but the rest of it is an open discussion. And if affordable housing and other sort of cultural and public amenity was part of the conversation, then I think that's a really exciting thing. And the other part of my motion was asking the city to develop principles around the public consultation. So I really want to get this public conversation going and get people engaged and interested so that if and when this comes up, people know how they feel and they're ready to get talking.
I must say, I walk around lots of the harbour, and I know this is outside your jurisdiction, but you walk through Balmoral or around North Head or South Head, and there's all these amazing areas that people would love that are armed forces areas. And I get why they're there, because the entrance to the harbour used to be a vulnerable point. Pretty sure it isn't now. I just wonder if they could give them back.
Well, that's right, and that's what this audit would be about. Victoria Barracks isn't the only site, and it might not even be the one that is most the lowest hanging fruit as far as this is concerned. But that's the biggest and most significant one in my neck of the woods, so that's the one that I'm focused on. But you're right. The Defence Force is, needless to say, a living, breathing institution, and it's got to evolve with Australia's contemporary strategic requirements, and a lot of its investment is shifting north. So some of these old historic sites might not be relevant for its contemporary requirements. And by opening it up and repurposing it, actually, if we're protecting the heritage as well, does allow the public to get more up close and personal with the historical side of it, as the military itself shifts to a posture that reflects our more contemporary requirements.
Yeah. And look, you might have a view on this. You don't have to be a military insider to have a view on all these spaces that the Armed Forces owns around Sydney or has control of around Sydney, or you might be, and you might be able to tell us why it's very important that they hang on to them. The text is 0467 922 702 or the number 1300 222 702. I mean, I don't want to be the guy who says, get rid of them all, then all of a sudden we're invaded.
Well, that's right, but that's why we're waiting to see what the audit says, because the experts will have their say. All I'm saying is that the city should be ready for a policy if this happens, and the public should get thinking about it. I invite everyone who's listening to get on Google Maps and look at this 15-hectare site from a bird's eye view. It's an enormous site right in the heart of the inner east. And Sydney has so many pressing needs. So if this came up, I want to make sure that the city is thinking about how to centre the common good, and also make sure that we're not just flogging off this land to the highest bidder, but making sure that the common good is served.
Someone texts, you do realise it's still used for operations. This conversation is fanciful and ignorant that it is still used. No, we understand that. It's just that they could, potentially move somewhere else.
I think that it's mostly office jobs, high office jobs. Let's not lose track of that. But the auditors will have their say on this, and I think it's a balancing act. I'm sort of, I've got my own sort of view, but what matters here is what the experts say. And I'm saying that the city should be ready.
Sonia says, morning, James. Utilising these sites is great in theory. However, the people that need housing couldn't afford to buy or rent there anyway. The wealthy and investors might do well as usual. Potentially right. But on the other hand, the more stock you have, the less pressure on prices.
Well, that's right, but also if the city of Sydney is in the picture, trying to determine what its role would be and advocating for particular uses, if part of the site is developed as affordable housing, then that's what it will be. And I think that if the public gets motivated and engaged and makes it very clear that what they want to see as part of this is affordable housing, then that will be part of the conversation as well, which is part of my motivation for doing this, getting the city ready, but also getting the public ready for a conversation.
Now, before we go, you've been Deputy Lord Mayor only for a couple of months. Right. Without, you're very eloquent and said all the right things about that, but just, peeling back, what's it been like?
Well, it's been a real privilege. We just had our second meeting last night. That was exciting. I was able to bring a few other motions as well. As Deputy Lord Mayor, I've had the opportunity to represent the Lord Mayor, Clover Moore, at a lot of events around the city, which she can't make it to, and I get to go in her stead. So it's a great opportunity to meet a lot more people around the city, talk to them, and be better known. So I find it really exciting and engaging, and really looking forward to trying to help make a difference on the issues that I ran on in the election in particular, but also being humble at the beginning, taking my time to learn and listen, because I'm the new kid on the block. But I hope to make a mark in due course.
All right, we've got you on record now saying be humble. So we'll see what happens. You might get that played back to you in a few years if anything changes. Just curious, long hours?
Is it long hours?
Long hours, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Tell you what, the council meeting last night ended at about 10 o'clock. Started at 5, went to 10, and that was just the meeting part of it. That's before you even take into account spending all day preparing and negotiating over amendments and counter amendments and all the rest of it. But the thing is it's really engaging work. So I've been bright-eyed and bushy-tailed all day, and
Okay.
I'm just looking forward to getting stuck into it.
Good on you. Nice to talk to you. Thanks so much.
My great pleasure. Thank you.
That is Zann Maxwell, the Deputy Mayor of the City of Sydney.